There you go. Got it. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you very much for giving up your time, and a particular huge thank you to Tara and Giovanna for contributing their wisdom and experience to show us their CRM systems. If you've got questions as we go along, please can you put them in the chat, and we will hopefully collate them, and then we can add them to the discussion at the end of both presentations. And I hope you've all sort of seen what this is all about today. And it's basically two systems. One is at the very beginning of energy advice, and the other one, the Exeter Tara's one, is more complex for a more advanced level of energy advice provision and retrofit and case management. So if you've got any questions, yes, put them in the chat. And then also we're really keen for anybody who's already got a CRM system to feed in any comments or feedback on anything, any thoughts you've got of the way things could be improved, because the end result is that we want to get to somewhere where we've got a system that can be rolled out across community energy groups to save everybody reinventing the wheel. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Tara to present first, actually, if that's okay. So Tara, do you want to share your screen?
Yep.
And I hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, actually, before I share the screen, I'll just give a bit of background, I think. So yeah, thanks for inviting us to show you our system today. Which we've set up on a platform called Airtable. I've got Margaret Pickering here as well. Margaret's our IT guru that helped me set it up a couple of years ago, and it's invaluable alongside us as we develop new innovations with the software as well. So a bit of background was up until 2020, we were using Excel documents to record all of our energy advice work, and we were quite a small project at that point with only 5 or 6 staff. So it wasn't too problematic, but we could foresee that it was going to get worse as we got busier and as we developed our services. And the issues we were finding with Excel were that if a client came back to us for a second or even third or fourth or fifth time, it was quite clunky in terms of adding more information to the sheets, and also it was really quite difficult in terms of doing reporting to funders. It was quite manual, quite labour intensive, and if a funder suddenly wanted something different, it was really quite complicated to try and find the information or change the way we're recording the information on the sheet. So we were aware we needed to do something different. And also we were kind of thinking we wanted more than a client database. We wanted a system that would manage all of that reporting for us to funders, and also perhaps find a way of managing workflows better, and kind of improving our service, improving our level of advice, and perhaps streamlining some of our functions within our energy advice project. So there were kind of lots of reasons why we needed to look at something new. And Margaret and I spent quite a few months, I don't know how many months, kind of mapping out client journeys. You know, how did clients arrive to us? What was it we actually did with those clients? What was the data that we needed to record? And then what did we need at the end? How did we need to collate all of it? And then all of the processes in between. So we spent a lot of time working through that. And luckily we had Margaret's IT experience to fall back on, and I'd been a home energy advisor for 4 years. So between us, we had a pretty good grasp of what we needed to do. And there were a couple of other things that happened along that time. Obviously 2020 was quite key, wasn't it? COVID came along, and we actually had some funding at that time that was specifically for us to telephone isolated people. But obviously we didn't have a system in place that helped us identify which of our customers were the most vulnerable, the most isolated. So there were all these kind of things happening all at the same time that made us realise we needed to do something quite different. So we spent a few months researching, and we found Airtable. So just to let you know, Airtable costs us about £100 per user per annum. We do get a 50% discount on their standard prices because we're not for profit. And we now use Airtable pretty much for everything we do on our energy advice system, including we've just added recently a new SMS texting app to it. So if we can't get hold of someone, we can just click a button on the system and we send them a text. So really quite innovative stuff that we've started to do with it. So I'll now share you a demo version that we've set up, and I'll talk you through how it works. Or how it works for us. This is the beauty with Airtable is you can set it up however you want to set it up, but this is how we've set it up. So hopefully you can see my screen. It might be a bit slow when I flick between different parts. Oh, my page has now gone funny as well, like it did before my photo. I'm going to turn my camera off. So yeah, I think it's just the broadband. It's struggling to do the Airtable with the amount of people on the Zoom. Basically, Airtable is a system of related tables. So within each database, you have your tables, and within each table you have records, and within each record you have your fields. So much like a cell on Excel, for those of you that are familiar with using Excel spreadsheets, each of these boxes on here is just like a cell on Excel. But the beauty with Airtable is that you can link them all together, all of your tables together, in a very user-friendly way, and you can add the fields and make them quite clever. You can do quite clever functions, and you can sync information, and you can link information together. So one of the ways that Airtable is the most useful for us is that it also has this option of views, and each user can have its own view. And so within a view, you can also change what you're looking at by filtering and grouping and sorting data. So for example, you could just go to a view and change what you want to see. So for example, on this view here, I've set it up to say I want to see all of the clients in our Exeter district with a tenure of homeowner and with an EPC of E, F and G. So it has given me a list of 5 clients that meet that criteria. But if I changed it and just said, well, actually, I don't want those EPCs, I just want to know how many homeowners, it will now do a little bit of calculation, and it is being slower than usual because I'm using the Zoom bandwidth. It will then calculate how many other people might now fill in this view for us. There we go. So now there's 36. And it would be normally much quicker than that. It would be instantaneous. When I was doing some stuff earlier, it was just, you know, a matter of a second for it to give me that information. So so that by using the views, it's really a clever way of actually sorting all your information very quickly and finding information you want to. And the views has been invaluable to us because each user can set up their own views. So whatever they're working on, they have their own view, and it doesn't impact on what anybody else is looking at. So that's one of the major pluses of it. So the other thing I wanted to just also explain before I actually go into how we collect the data and store the data is also that you can use the system to talk to each other. So we've cut down the number of emails that we send to each other. So I'm just going to switch onto a different table here and go to a view. So I've set up a view for overdues. So overdue interactions at the moment. So there might be some overdues on here. So let's go to an aftercare call, perhaps. Although it's Charlene, I'm going to pretend it's Margaret because Margaret's here. And I might just open it up, and then on this activity pane on the right, you can just send a message to someone. So I can say, well, Margaret, why haven't you called this person? And just send her that message. So that's now gone to her as a message on her Airtable. So it cuts down phone calls, it cuts down emails, because we can just message about specific clients within the system. So that's just 2 kind of really useful tools. But now what I'll do is I'll just show you how we use it for actually processing our client data. So we have three basic tables, which is client, where we keep all of the static information about a person. So that would be their names and addresses and their vulnerabilities perhaps, and their tenure and their fuel types, all kinds of kind of crucial data about the person. And we then link to that the interactions that we hold with those people. So an interaction might be a telephone call, might be a home visit, might be that we met them at an event, and we can then add each interaction individually to each client. And then in the interaction, we add the outcomes that we've carried out on that interaction. So that might be that we've helped them with some advice, or it might be we actually did something with them, like help them change supplier, or rang the supplier, whatever it is that we did, or a referral out to somewhere. So I'm going to show you each of those sections in turn. But just to kind of start, to find a client is quite easy. There's just a search button in the top right, and I'm just going to pick a postcode that I know is on here, because this is only a mini version. So I put in a postcode. I want to find this particular customer, that postcode, and it finds it straight away. And then instead of looking at the table as a horizontal line, we can expand each record into a vertical view. So the vertical view then is much easier to read. So it's just like then reading a page rather than reading a table of data. So this particular client, instantly I can see quite a lot of information about them. I can see their address and phone number, and I can see that we last did help them with their priority services registration in May, and that the last time we spoke to them, they fell into the broader group of warm home discounts. We've got all the tags on as to which district they're in, their tenure, their type of property, their EPC, their vulnerabilities, if any, how many people in the household. And also for this one, we can see that they're electric dependent because they have refrigerated medicine. We've got information about how they referred to us and some referrer notes, some additional notes about the client. And when we last spoke to her, she was with British Gas. We've got annual consumption figures and details about their meter type and fuel types, for example. So you can add to this as much data as you want to, obviously, as much that you want to collect. You can just add extra fields. And then if we scroll down further, we can now actually see at a glance that this particular client has had 2 interactions with us in 2022. So there was an inquiry in May and a LEAP home visit in July. So I can then, from this open window, go directly to this interaction. I don't have to come out and go back to the interaction list. I can click directly from here and open up this interaction. So then I can instantly see what actually happened on this inquiry in May. I can see the exact date, and then there's some notes about what was discussed. And then I can see what the advisor actually did with that client. And if I wanted to know more, I could actually click through to each of these outcomes and see if there's any more detail about any particular item. And then I can then also go to the home visit from the same client window and have a read about the home visit and see lots more notes here about the home visit and lots more outcomes, lots of advice, lots of measures. It looks like we fitted some light bulbs. It looks like we've looked at tariffs and smart meters and lots of advice about behaviour. So quite an in-depth session with that particular client that we've been able to record that information. And so behind each of those outcomes, we track values. So we've got a list of deliverables, as we call them, and so each of those items is on a separate list, and then we record a value against them, which is then what we report to our funders in terms of energy saving or grants that we've been able to obtain for the customer, or if we've done benefits check or debt support. All of those values are collected. The other thing I was just going to show you was about adding a client. So you can do that via a form. You can do it direct onto the table. But I'm just going to show you that you can set up a form quite easily. I don't know if this will work actually, because it might open a new window. You'll have to tell me if you see the form. Are you seeing a second page?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so it's open be up a form to add a new client, and it's then very simple to set up the forms. You can just then fill in the information that you need to. Oops, I can't type very well. You know, whatever it is you need to fill in. And then you can make these fields on a form mandatory, which we've got on this particular form, that we've got phone numbers as mandatory, and then we can give you know, some guidance. So enter none if they don't have a landline. I've put in a 0. It doesn't actually matter. It won't reject it. I was just being speedy because I wasn't going to fill it in. And then if we want to put a form on our website, for example, which is what we have done, we've got a different version of this form, because we don't ask the clients to fill in all of this information about their tenure, but this is just a form that we'll use if we've had a telephone inquiry from somebody. But you can put in whatever fields you want to put in on your form for the data that you want to capture from the clients or from the referrer. So we give the referrers a form on our website that they can fill in, and then we've already got a list in there. So let's pretend I'm Age UK Exeter today. So this has been referred by H UK Exeter. They can fill in their notes that they're referring the client to us. So yeah, as you can see, there's lots and lots of information, and then that just gets submitted. And then hopefully I can go back to the table if the broadband's working fast enough, and we'll be able to see it arrive on the table. Yeah, there it is, with my poor spelling of High Street. It's already populated our database. So wherever that form was sitting, whatever website it was on, that data just comes straight into the database for us. So there's lots of really clever things that Airtable can do for us.
Hey, how are you doing?
There's also a way that we use. Somebody mute themselves.
Can you mute yourself, please?
Thanks. Thank you. There's also some things that we do around processes. So like approval processes. So if the team perhaps want to request a referral or like a fuel voucher or something like that, or we've got a white goods scheme, we use the system to give us some approvals. And I thought I'd set it up so I had it at the top, but maybe not. Yes, here we go. So we've got a check view set up to check referrals that are going off to some eco installers. So before that goes off to the eco installer, a manager can give it a quick approval. So we've got a tick box on the form ready that says referral approved, and then I can just give that a quick tick, and that will go off in whatever form we've set it up to go off to the installer. So whether that's a form that gets sent to them, or an email, or in some cases we do it via our own system, we give them access to a view on our system. So again, you can kind of use Airtable to set up any kind of process that you want to. You just have to think through what it is that you want to actually do. Now, the other thing I know that you wanted me to cover was around data. So hopefully I showed you a little bit of that earlier, but I've done 2 other demos here. So for example, we might want to know how many white goods we've have arranged for our clients this winter. So I set up a view here earlier that just basically lets me see how many of the heart is the project, how many of the heart white goods have we processed. And so I can just do that very quickly, set up that filter to say how many, and it gives me at the bottom that there's 22. And then I've grouped it by type, so I can see that there's 5 electric cookers, 1 freezer, 4 fridges, 4 fridge freezers, 8 washing machines. So very quickly I can just review what we've been doing, and particularly if a funder wanted to know or a council contact wanted to know. And a second one I've set up is on outstanding referrals. So I was just talking about eco referrals. So I might want to just review with the eco installer, how many have they got that they're working on. So I've got a view that I set up that just says how many have we got in progress to this particular installer, Anstey. And I can see currently we've got 5, and then I've grouped it by with the client, so I can see exactly which clients that is and what are the referrals. So if I wanted to ring the installer and say, hey, what's happening with these referrals, it's very quick and easy to get that data. The other big advantage with Airtable for us has been the reporting to funders. So I'm just going to give you an example of one of the systems we've set up with Margaret's help. I have to say I couldn't have done all of this without Margaret. So we've set up a system for one of our reporting where I can select candidates to be reported. And we've set up a view with all of the information that I want to consider to decide whether to report the particular customer to that funder. And then we've got a reporting code. So I just tagged a couple earlier here that there's 2 I want to report and 1 that I don't. This one here, there's nothing much happened. So on our reporting code, I can just say no, none, I don't want to report that, and that will disappear off the list. There we go, that's disappeared. But there are 2 here that are actually, I think we've done quite a lot of activity with, and maybe I want to report them. And I've just got it set up because this is just a temporary database we set up. I've got it set up that it's got September reporting. So I'm just going to say that I want to just report these 2 in the September reporting. So I've added those, and I could do the same by going through all of the recent interactions and deciding which ones I want to report. And then I can go to our client database, and on here we've got the report generation set up. So once I've tagged everybody I want to report, I can then go to a field, another view that's already been set up, and then that pulls through everything that's been tagged with that reporting for September. And we've got it already set up with everything we absolutely need, every column, every amount. We've got 0 amounts on here only because we didn't have them set up on this demo for you. But on our live database, all of these columns would have all the amounts of all of the outcomes that we've done for each client, and all the totals, everything that funder wants to know, we've included in that table. So when I'm happy that that includes all the clients that I want to report, I can then do an extract with a CSV file that I can then copy that onto the funder's reporting document. So it now only takes me to actually fill in the report, the funder's report form, about 10 or 15 minutes because the data's all here ready, whereas prior it used to take me quite a few hours. So it's a real blessing to us that we've been able to use a system like this to really streamline our work, and in particular help us grow, because in the last couple of years we've been able to grow our project tremendously, and I know for sure we wouldn't have been able to do that if we hadn't had a system like this backing everything up. The other great thing about the views and the way that you can filter everything is that we can check the quality of our work. So we can easily group the data by the advisor, do their work and review the quality of their advice, and just to see whether they're fulfilling the standards that we would expect them to fulfill for us. And obviously that also helps us with our annual reviews and appraisals or interim reviews with the staff, so that we can give them some coaching and mentoring. And last but not least, but also the data that I mentioned, if you've got all the values added in behind all those outcomes, we can do quite some sophisticated number crunching. When I say we, it's not actually me, Margaret does the sophisticated number crunching for me. So we're able to produce quite detailed reports for our director board and for our council partners that we have. So, you know, for example, only a couple of days ago, one of our council partners asked me for some stats for a cabinet meeting that she was going to, and I was able just to go to our monthly reports that Margaret does and pull off all the data that she needed for that particular district to take to a cabinet meeting. And it took me literally about 10 minutes to just put that together on an email for her. So, you know, it can be very clever depending on what it is you need it to do. So I think I'll stop there because I've probably said enough at this stage, and maybe there's some questions I need to answer.
I think we'll save the questions maybe till Giovanna's done her bit. That there are quite a few questions in the chat, Tara. Thank you so much for that. That was really, really interesting. So if I hand over now to Giovanna, do you want to, or whoever's from you is sharing your screen?
Hello. I'm back. I've managed to unmute myself. Small achievements. Hi, everyone. May I also introduce Catherine? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So Catherine is our operations manager, and she's the one that does all the clever stuff these days. So I'm going to talk you through what we do in terms of fuel poverty, but also how we have invented a system for doing something similar to what Deborah is doing, but just using Google Sheets and Google Forms. We sadly have not had the funding that we were able. Well, we've just received some funding to develop a CRM, but we've managed for 8 years now, just using some really quite simple tools. Yeah, let me share my screen and take you through. There we go. Right. So first off, a little bit about Celsi. Go on. Slideshow from beginning. There we go. Can you see that? Good. Lovely.
We can see the PowerPoint, but not the actual presentation.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me just turn my camera off and do this. Can you see that? Yep.
We can see the PowerPoint. Okay, now it's working. That's
Now it's working. Yep. Sorry, it is just something to do with the way I set my laptop up. So, ever since our inception, we have done a lot of work tackling fuel poverty in South East London. We also do a bunch of other work. We're like many community energy groups. We also own and operate community finance solar. We do LED work. We have a service for called Future Fit Homes that enables those who are able to pay to access advice and support. We have a program that works with small businesses. So what we're doing is part of our fuel poverty work is part of what we do. And in many ways, a very important part. About half the people that we employ, currently 14 people, are working as energy advisors. So our energy advice service enables to give a whole range of help that I imagine all of you have been learning how to do or currently do. We are not unique in the advice we give. So the help we give is a lot about energy markets, priority service registration, eligibility for price support mechanisms, dealing with energy or water debt, referring to for grant-funded measures, major measures, so aiming to improve the energy efficiency of property, advocating with landlords. We're assessing eligibility for grants to replace old or inefficient white goods. We have a service to support people whose heating has broken, and we're giving a lot of advice about behavioural measures and energy demand, and then referring to other sources of support alongside sort of myth busting about smart meters. We give a range of advice in different contexts. We have a telephone advice service. We do home visits. We have energy cafes. We do a bunch of workshops and frontline worker training. I imagine that's fairly similar. These are our principal current funders: local authorities, regional authorities, power partners. We also deliver LEAP, which has its own reporting process. We get some funding from Redress via a partnership with Groundwork London. We get funding from Big Energy Saving Network, and we cobble it all together. What we're doing is there's very little difference between what we're doing for different funders. It's just all cobbled together and mixed together in a nice little funder stew. Typically what will happen is we start with energy, we start the advice journey with a telephone advice call, and then they get triaged to have a home visit or not a home visit. And then we carry on working with that client, either in the context of repeat visits or repeat phone calls, until we've responded to all of those that client need. We're working with about 1,000 clients a year, though we're well on the way to busting that this year because there is so much need out there. So let's talk about CRMs. I imagine many of you are familiar with the challenge that no single funder, you can't just rely on one funder. You have to cobble your service together from a whole heap of funders who want you to do the same thing in essence, but who all seem to want vastly different information. But you also, you've already heard about this problem, that often you're talking to the same client on multiple occasions. You need to record what you're doing, so that when you next speak to the client, you can work out where you got to. You also need to be able to sort and filter your data when a new offer comes along. Hey, that's maybe a new fund opens for grant-funded energy efficiency measures. You need to be able to sort and filter your data to be able to work out which of your current clients are eligible. And you also need to be able to work out whether your advisors are meeting their targets and best standards of advice. So that's why you need a CRM. It's not just about reporting to funders. There's all of these other sort of demands on you. We typically use Google Forms, Google Sheets, because it's free. We never had the money to be able to develop a decent CRM. You do need about 10 grand, and we've never had that. We have just been awarded some funding from Power to Change to be able to develop that. But the reason why we like Google Forms and Google Sheets is quite flexible in many ways. Unless, in case you don't know, the way Google Forms and Google Sheets work is you have a front end, you have a form that the advisor fills out as they're doing the advice. That's recording what they're doing as they go along and details about the client. That automatically becomes a Google Sheet. And that can be exported or downloaded as an Excel spreadsheet. The way we do it is we do the client-facing stuff in Google, and then we download into Excel, and then we do a whole bunch of analysis in Excel. Catherine has got extremely good at doing a whole heap of formulas, man, and spends a lot of time doing it. I will say we kind of have reached the end of the road with Google Forms and Google Sheet. We are too big now to keep this going. And there are many challenges with this system. And I'll talk about some of those challenges in a moment, what we aren't able to do with it. But first I will talk about what we are able to do. So I'm going to talk about a previous version of the CRM. before I talk about our current iteration. So basically, we have a CRM, and it asks it. We collect information along the lines of the following topic. We have a consent statement that we read to the client. We collect some contact info and demographics, things like ethnicity, tenure, age, household composition. Then we start collecting information about essentially what information or advice the client is given and what actions we take on their behalf. We might also use this form to record the outcome. So, for example, with energy markets, we will record whether we give the client any information about, energy markets, what the benefits are of different payment of switching suppliers or switching payment methods. We might also record whether what action the client has taken. Have they switched the client? I know none of us are doing any switching at the moment, but this is just, take this as an example, whether they switch the client. And whether the client will also record how much the client saved by switching energy supplier or tariff. That's just an example of the sequence that we're going through. What info you're given, what action was taken, what's the outcome. And we're doing that for each of these topics. Similarly, for advocacy, it might be advocacy with the energy company or advocacy with the landlord. We're recording what info we're given, what info we have given, what advice, what actions we've taken on behalf of the client, and also what was the outcome. And that's the same for all of these topics. Smart meters, energy debt, info about space heating, how to make the best of your space heating, demand reduction, behavioural advice, white goods. We're also recording what, throughout lockdown, we were doing a lot of things, and this is the lockdown version of the CRM, really. This is what we were using throughout lockdown. What measures the client needs. The energy efficiency section is what you fill out if you then go on to do a home visit. So typically it's information about, the walls, floors, doors, roofs, sources of heat loss, what kind of measures the client might need, and whether we've referred them to a system like, to a funder like LAD or ECOE. Then we have signposts and referrals. Who did we refer the client to? If the client, for example, was referred to Mind because they have mental health problems, we'll record that in the system. We'll have a set of closing statements, what's happening, what we told the client's going to happen next, and some feedback. So those are the topics we go over. Would you like to actually see the thing? Let's see the thing. So I should have it open here. It's quite long, so bear with me. Here's what it looks like, and we won't have time to go through the whole thing. But, so, we're recording.
We can't see that, we can only see the PowerPoint.
Oh, that's annoying. Share screen again. Show the thing, says Alex. Yeah, okay, I'm trying to show the thing. There we go, show the thing. Share the thing. There we go. Can you see the thing? You got the thing. Nod. Yes, thank you. Great.
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, technology, we love it. So we're recording details about the advice given. Who's the advisor? When were the energy advice sessions? We've got a consent statement there. Consent to contact the client. We've got information about what borough they're in, how they heard about it, some details about their name, the age, gender, ethnic group.
Bit slower, please.
Religion. Religion. Do they have a carer? Household composition.
Slow down, Dee.
Slow down. Slow down. Okay. Slow down. Go slower. So we've got some details about household composition. As you can see, this is very clunky in Google Forms, household composition. You have to ask 6 or 7 questions to get household composition in Google Forms because they don't have lots of different varieties of question you can ask. What benefits are they in receipt of? What is their income? How are they doing financially? Generally, what's their tenure? The language they speak. We've got lots of different, we've got advisors that speak a range of languages. Now this little bit, this allows you to jump between sections. It's a thing you can set up. So if the conversation doesn't follow your normal order of conversation, you can jump between sections. So here's an example of that sequence of information that we seek to collect. First off, what advice have you given? Secondly, what action did you take? And thirdly, what was the outcome? So you can see that quite clearly with price comparison. And typically we're sticking a comments section at the end because quite often situations don't fit into the normal course of event. Warm home discount. What advice did you give? What action did you take? And you can see those warm home discount has changed. So this form, this is one of the reasons why we're not using this particular form anymore, because every time the things in the sector change, you have to change your form. It's very annoying. Priority service register, what advice is given, what action did you take? And also, what was the outcome? Water shore, it's going to take me ages to go through all of this. So I'm going to skip a few sections. So you can see with that advice, I'm going to skip over a few sections because all of these sections about energy market price are the same. Smart meters, it's the same. We're recording what advice we gave, what actions we took, what was the outcome. So then once we go, this section is a section you normally fill out if you're in the home. And if you're in the home, what you want to do is you want to record some information about the building fabric, its age, so you can make an assessment about what kind of major measures you need. So as you can see, we've got the information about external walls, insulation, is there any wall insulation? What's the roof type? What type of roof insulation is there? What kind of floors have you got? This enables us to work out what measures the client is needed. So this is there really for the advisor to go through a process of thinking about what measures are most appropriate for this home. It's less for reporting to funders. It's more about the advisor's thought process. Similarly, with space heating, we're recording what's there. What heating controls? Oh, this is quite a useful kind of question you can set up in Google Forms. Is a matrix. It makes a slightly less clunky questions. Yeah, and here is what the advisor. Here's the main point of this section. The advisor is able to think about, well, what kind of major measures are needed in this home. What we're trying to do is refer appropriately to different sources of grant funding. So I'm going to skip over a lot of the rest of this and then just go on to show you demand reduction. So with demand reduction, what we used to do, we have changed, but what we used to do is we just used to tick what kind of advice we've given. Here's some top tips. Which of those did you give to the client? We've actually changed our approach now in our latest version of the CRM. What we now do is we get the client to record what How many kilowatt hours is the client using on electricity and gas? Then assessing whether it's above or below average. If it's below average, they're not really giving any behavioural advice. If it's above average, they are. The rationale for that is giving behavioural advice to somebody who's already very frugal is like teaching, telling a starving person not to eat. So we slightly changed our approach there. So just to go on, I'm just going to skip over a lot of this stuff because I don't have time to go through it. That's our referral section. Where are you what are you referring for? Lastly, it ends with a little feedback session. What was the quality advice? Do you feel more confident about managing your energy costs? Do you feel more confident about being able to stay warm? What have you learned? What's the most useful things have you learned? What could we have done better? So we're asking that. We're making sure we're continually evolving our service. So I'm going to stop share. I'm going to go back to my doodah. There we go. From beginning. Can you see that? Go on, from beginning, slideshow from beginning. Here we go. That's right. Yes. So what we then do is some analysis. And essentially what we're doing is we're getting the data from the Google Sheet and we're putting it into Excel. We're cleaning the data. So we're looking for duplicate entries and then we're doing a whole heap of formulas. Do you want to see? This is a bit data protected, but I will show you some analysis that we're doing. And Catherine, perhaps you could talk us through this. Ooh, that doesn't look good. Is that the right one per borough? There we go. Catherine, if you could kind of talk us through the kind of analyses you're doing here.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want to share the screen at the moment?
Oh God, I'm not sharing the screen again. Embarrassing. Share the screen. Find the doodah. Share the screen. Doodah. There we go.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So after each of the responses are added by the advisors to the case notes on the Google form, this will go to a spreadsheet on Google. After that, I just extract everything and then put it on Excel so I can analyze it with different formulas. And as you can see here, we provide advice in lots of different boroughs due to different types of funding that we have. So just log in some different formulas. I can see how many we have per each borough. Then we also are interested in the demographics and we look at the different kind of advice that we do per borough. So that's why you have all the different columns in here. But it's quite easy to do the formulas once you understand them, but you can just see on each of the different areas. So again, as you see, the ethnicity, all the languages, I can see that I have more in Spanish in Lewisham than in Bromley, or any of that kind of comparison. So you keep going down, you can see all the different kind of analysis that we do, the gender, disabilities, household income, all these kind of things, which it just helps us to do the different types of reporting according to the funder. Yeah.
Just to make clear, if you're going to do this, get used to doing count if and count ifs. These are the kind of formulas you're doing you'll need to learn to do count if and sum if.
Which are the normal kind of formulas for sum, but it's just with a condition. So according to wherever I'm asking Excel to do, I can add as many conditions as I need. So for example, show me how many advice we gave on compare suppliers in Lewisham. That's 2 conditions. So that's kind of the formulas that we use. And yeah, so that's kind of the stuff that we look at it. I can also work the percentage. So we know if we need to talk about some different things with the clients. Yeah, that's it's the same in each of the different areas.
Yeah, and you know it gets very time consuming doing it this way. So that's why we've kind of reached the end of being able to continue to do this, because it really does take so much time. What we're typically doing, though, I mean, the advantage of doing it this way is that it does offer lots of flexibility. I'm just going to show you our summed energy savings. What it does allow you to do is a bunch of formulas about summing the total energy savings. And one of the things that we do is we generally we make some, we did some feedback work, year 1, year 2 and year 3 research work a little while ago, which gave us an indication of what percentage of people were following up on our advice in year 2 and year 3. So what was the longevity of advice? And it allows us to calculate what is the impact, not just in year 1, but in year 2 and 3. Typically, if we've got, when we're analysing the data for particular funders, we need to then do a totally different kind of analysis. So this is the analysis we have to do for UKPN. Oh no, that's not the final analysis, is it?
No, I have it saved somewhere else.
Yes, we also analyse per advisor. We've got all our advisor totals, and we work out what each advisor is doing. Hugely time consuming. But you know, if you're good at Excel formulas, if you have to do it this way, you get good at Excel formulas. Let's just say that. Okay, I'm just going to run through the very last bit of the slideshow. Where am I? Is it that one? Yeah. So some of the shortcomings of this system are very much, well, it's hugely time consuming. It does allow flexibility. So whenever you've got a new funder, you just set in place a bunch of new formulas, but you have to do an awful lot of data cleansing. If you get a repeat client, you actually have to manually look through the list to see whether they've been there before. If you want to contact all clients by text, for example, or you want to phone clients, some CRMs will allow you to do that automatically within the CRM, send a whole bunch of text to particular kinds of clients. You can't do that. It won't automatically map clients on a map. So for you to be able to organize home visits. And you know, I would say there was one year when we had a funder, one of the energy company funders. I'm not going to dump them in it here, but they asked for reporting on 70 different variables on a monthly basis. Using this system, I must have spent about half of my working time napping about with data. And it also involved data from other partners that I had to get them to, oh my goodness. So yeah, there are real limitations to this system. What we've moved on to, we've got funding for a new CRM, but we have just, because the energy market has changed, and we haven't yet got our new CRM in place, we have developed a new system in Google Sheets. And the difference between the old system and the new system is that we recognise that we're doing different things for different types of clients. There is some core advice for everyone about energy markets, discounts, priority service register, smart meters, energy debt, white goods, referrals. That's the same for everyone. However, for owner occupiers, what we're really doing is we're looking to see whether we can get any grant funding for major measures. For private rental and social housing, often we're building a case against the landlord. So we're looking for hazards that we can then report to environmental health. So there's two. We've built within Google Sheets a system where there's kind of two different branches. And we've also got a short case notes system that really is for the big energy saving network data that we need to collect, where we're having a conversation that's less than 10 minutes. It's not worth filling out all the full case notes. You just do a really short case note system. What have I forgotten to say, Catherine?
No, I think that you cover all of it
Great. Well, that's it for a whistle-stop tour of the trials and tribulations of blooming case notes, CRMs, and your poverty.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Giovanna and Catherine. That's really great. And thanks for Alex, who was doing a side thing in the chat as well. That's absolutely brilliant. So we've got loads of questions for both of you. And if anybody wants to ask additional questions as we go along, just raise your hand. And Duncan, if you could keep an eye on the hand raising and jump in. Okay, so just going back to the questions, I'll start with the questions for Tara. Richard was asking, did you define all the cells and fields, which I think you mean, Richard, did you define them all before you started, or do you define them all as you go along? Feel free to jump in, Richard, if I've misunderstood that one.
Yeah, sorry, it wasn't very clear. I mean, did you have freedom to just play with the software and write it all in yourself, or did you have to go to the supplier and give them a list?
No, you do everything yourself. On Airtable, you just get the bare bones platform and you create everything yourself. So that was what I explained at the beginning. Margaret and I sat down for a few months and worked out what it was we needed to do, and then created the system to be exactly how we needed it to be. And I just thought it was a couple of things that Giovanna mentioned, that they were at capacity 1,000 clients a year. And I think that's where we were in 2020. We were at about 1,000 clients a year, and we were creaking at the seams with Excel, which is why we needed to do something. So this last year we've helped 3,000 homes. So there's no way we would have coped with, our old system for 3,000 homes.
Brilliant, thank you. And the GDPR question, either of you, this is probably useful, but Debbie was asking how you cope with GDPR requirements, and also do the clients know that their info is being sent to the funders?
Yeah, I think somebody answered it in the chat. Yeah, you cover that off as part of your kind of advisor, that you explain that you're going to A, record the data, and B, if we've got a project where we need to divulge specific client information to a funder, then we will tell the client up front that that's what we need to do. And then we've got a field on the system that they can opt out if they don't want to be reported to a funder. So we'll still collect their information so we can manage them as a case, but we'll just flag it that it's not to go to a funder. And we do that any case with a lot of people. If they've got extreme dementia, there's no point of funder ringing them up for feedback, because they won't get any sense out of the client, or if somebody doesn't speak English, that kind of thing. So you can flag it so that funders don't get certain information.
Okay, brilliant. Giovanna, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it's really important to write a good consent statement that covers you for all the things you need to do for funders. Yeah, includes referral partners.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So on to the kind of money question. Obviously there was lots of questions and answers in the chat about the money, but did either of you pay a consultant to tailor either of your systems? So Tara, do you want to go first, and then Giovanna? Did you pay consultants or developers?
Well, we were the consultants, Margaret and I. So yeah, no, we had no outside support. We did it ourselves, and I calculated that we spent £5,000 in the first year, which was developing the system and then tweaking it and adjusting as we started to use it. So yeah, I count it as kind of £5,000 as our kind of base cost. And then we do obviously have additional cost ongoing, because I still pay Margaret to make changes for us now. But no, not a developer in the true sense of what most people would feel as, like an IT developer, because there isn't any kind of programming on Airtable. It was much like Giovanna and Catherine was saying about the Google Sheets, is you use your formulas. So you can use quite simple formulas to manipulate the data and adjust things. You don't need to have like scripting or programming languages to do that.
If I can just come in on that, I think Tara introduced me as an IT consultant.
I describe myself as Airtable configuration support, in that I've got an IT background, but there is no programming. I've just spent the time looking at Airtable, understanding how it works, and then, you know, putting it together. Tara could have done all this herself, but it would have taken a lot of time, which is time she doesn't have and is more valuably employed elsewhere. If you are having to pay a proper full-on IT consultant at those rates, I think it would be more than £5,000, frankly. Yeah. But, you know, anybody who's not frightened of computers and is prepared to put the work in can do it. And it's certainly no harder than all the SumIF stuff that Giovanna's team have done. Nothing, you know, because that's hard stuff, I know. Airtable's no worse than that, if not better.
And just to clarify, Margaret was working for us at the time anyway. We didn't go out and recruit her as a new person. She was already on our team. We just utilised her existing skills.
Yeah, and for us at Chelsea, no. I mean, yeah, no money for consultant. Basically what we did is we started using Google Forms, maybe it's about 6 years ago. And I think, you know, we have gradually evolved what we ask the advisors to record. I mean, that's the bit that I suppose was gradual. We learnt by mistakes, and that's not something a consultant can give you. We did have another organisation who we work quite closely in partnership with in Greenwich, want to incorporate our case notes into their system, and they spent a whole bunch of time with a consultant, or a whole bunch of money on a consultant trying to develop a case note system for us. But it took them ages, and by the time they developed it, the market had changed, and we needed to change all our questions. So, you know, I think whenever you've got one of these systems, you've got to be nimble, because actually what's on offer, what you can do as an energy advisor is constantly changing. Yeah. So
and that's why, in a way, it's best if you're intimately involved in the build yourselves, because then you can make the changes that you need to make when you need to make them. And I can see there's, you know, an obvious desire in the chat room to say, well, why don't we have all one system? We're all doing the one thing, and that would be lovely, but then you'll get into the sort of bureaucracy, which I have quite a lot of experience of big IT systems, where you've got so many people who've got to agree to make a change at the same time. So, you know, that's a possibility. Community Energy England might want to go that way, but just think about the decision-making complexity that you're going to have and the timing complexities that you're going to have. Whereas if you've done it yourself, your hands are still on it, you can evolve and be nimble. So it's difficult. It's a difficult issue, but I think that's one that you're going to have to debate quite a bit.
Brilliant, thank you. So in terms of actually using both systems, what does that look like on the ground? Do the advisors fill in the forms on an iPad in the home, and how does all of that work? Like actually in the field? Giovanna, do you want to go first?
So basically what's normally happening, different advisors do it different ways. Most advisors will fill out the form. When they're doing telephone advice, they'll fill it out as they're doing the advice. So they'll fill directly into the form. And so your form, the order, the structure of your form needs to reflect the structure of a normal energy advice conversation. So yeah, normally they have two monitors. They've got the form on one of the monitors, and they're doing the advice and filling out the priority service registration form on the other, or whatever they're doing. They're looking at price comparison on the other screen, and they're just doing it as they go along. Some advisors struggle with that, and they know what the questions are, and they record it in they record their data in a notepad that they then transfer into the case notes later. When they're in the home, they have an iPad, and you know, what's quite difficult about Google Forms is re-logging in. We had to create a system whereby you could continue filling out the form, a form you've already started for a client. So you have to create a link to re-enter the same form. But yeah, they can continue working on the same form in the home on an iPad.
Okay, Tara, how does it work with yours?
Yeah, I mean it's an online platform, so if they're in a home and they've got connectivity, then yes, they can input stuff on while they're there with the client. Certainly, if they're on the telephone working from home, they'll be entering data as they're talking to the client. Also at events, you know, again, if they've got their iPad, if it's an advisor with an iPad, they will enter stuff as they go. If not, yeah, they'll just enter it when they're back home. But yeah, very, very flexible. And because because the Airtable platform is all real time, as you saw, I was making changes, you know, as we were talking. And in fact, now we can, you know, it's quite funny if two of us are talking about a client and we're both adding notes at the same time. It's quite weird that you see two lots of notes going on in the same box. It's a bit unnerving sometimes. but yeah, that's the beauty of it, that you can just nip in and just think, oh, I just forgot to add that one sentence, and just nip back in and add that one sentence. It's very straightforward and easy to do that.
Yeah, and just to say, it's similar to Google Forms. It's all out on the cloud. The servers are somewhere way away. There's no locally held data to lose.
Okay, lovely. And can you, with both your systems, or either of the systems, can you set up a mapping functionality for the reporting so that you can see where clusters of people are that you're helping, or is that beyond the technology?
I'm not sure if it's beyond the technology or not, because I've not looked into that. I mean, it's pretty easy to analyze by postcode, and some work is done by post town down here, but I haven't actually tried to overlay it onto Google Maps or anything like that. Just haven't needed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've never been asked to, have we? So we've never looked into it.
I just haven't looked at it.
Yeah. No, typically you do need to organise home visits. I mean, Catherine, perhaps you can talk about sort of what you're doing with Batch Geo, the way basically you want to organise a journey that minimises the time in the car.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I extract the data on Excel from the clients that have requested a home visit. And then, yeah, we just put everything onto one list on Batch.geo, which is just a free website that you can create any maps. And then from there, we can see any clusters of clients. And then, yeah, hopefully try to organize home visits for people on the same day. And they might be like 5-10 minutes away from each other.
I think we just rely on the home energy advisors knowing the area, and they'll know the town and village names. It's a bit of a different situation to London.
We're a different location. We've already got an hour drive to most houses, so so yeah, they will try and do 2 in the same town, but they're not worried about anything more than that.
Okay, and in terms of the reporting, Kate was asking about how you can turn generic data into the format the funder wants. How does it, do you tend to design the database so that it reports as the funder wants, or can you manipulate the data that you're already collecting into a different format fairly easily? Tara, do you want to go first and then Giovanna?
Yeah,
it's both, isn't it, really? But yeah, Margaret, you can explain.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things. There was a specific question I saw in the chat about date formats. And what I would do there is I create, so there's a field with the date in standard format. Somebody wants it in a special format. I create a field next door, and then I say it's equal to that one, formatted, and it'll do it all formatted. Yeah, do you understand? And then when I would then prepare a view, which is all the things you want for a specific report, including this fancy date format. And then you download that to Excel, good old Excel, and then that then goes out to the funder like that.
Okay, and so you can do that, and then you can use that going forward. It's only a one-off job.
Yeah, it's a one-off job, and then somebody else comes along and wants different
something else.
and then we would do that as well. I would say that when it comes to sort of statistical analysis, I do it in Excel. So I would sometimes I download loads of stuff. Then I do when I do a quarterly report, I'm downloading virtually every record on the database and using Excel to produce tables, graphs, different alternative ways of looking at things, simply because it's more powerful than Airtable's reporting tools. It's such a mature product, and I happen to know it. So that's the way that we do it. So it doesn't, all end up in Excel in the end.
Okay, Giovanna, I suppose it's down to Catherine's formulae again, is it?
Yeah, it is. But I think one of the things you need to recognise, and one of the problems with funding for fuel poverty, is that often some funders will want extremely detailed information. So, for example, some funders will only want to know if you've actually signed someone up for the priority service register. Others will simply want to know if you've done some work on that area. That could encompass giving them information, encouraging them to apply, actually filling out the form for them, filling out the form, sending off. It could encourage that whole gamut of things. And so what we try and do is create a form that records as accurately as possible the work that advisors have done. And then we can create the formulas that match exactly what the funder wants. So your formula for the one funder that just wants some vague information about whether you've done something about the priority service register is count all the people who've had advice, information or signed up, or the other funder that just wants information about the people who you actually signed up, you just count those people. So my advice is, when you're setting this up, set it up to record as accurately as possible what actually happened, and then you can create your formulas to give the funder exactly what they want, vague or not very vague. I don't know, Margaret. That's ringing bells with you guys. It just drives me potty.
And like, and all the possible options, somebody, there might be a new thing comes along, and we're like, okay, what's somebody going to ask us about in the next 12 months on this particular thing? And we kind of got to guess all the different permutations and get that on the system before we set it live.
Yes.
So it can be quite tricky. Or like at the moment, we've got one fuel voucher people that want to know if they've had a voucher in the last month, and another one wants to know how many they've had in the last year. And it's like, well, we've got to set up a system that covers all of those possible options.
So record what actually happens. Then it's just a question of building the formulas on top.
Okay, thank you. And so there were a few questions around SMSing and emailing and how that all kind of works to go back in. So Tara, you mentioned that you can send people text messages from the Airtable, but Giovanna, you said that you can't from your Google Sheets. And the other question, Tara, was if you email everybody, if you email a newsletter to everyone who's signed up, does that automatically go into the records? Does it all work like that on Airtable?
We could do. It's not something we've done because we don't necessarily send newsletters in that way to those clients, but we could. There are lots of automations. Margaret's got quite clever at doing automated processes, so that we probably could work out a way of doing something quite clever, sending stuff and then telling the system that that's what we've done.
I mean, I'd love a system that sends people a text message just to remind them about their home visit. We'd waste so much less time. I mean, Catherine has worked out how to use an add-on onto Google Sheets.
We're using an add-on with Airtable. You can have integrations with a lot of other applications. I think it will integrate with Google Sheets as quite apart from anything else. So we use one product to then pick up data from Airtable when they've pressed a button saying that they want to send a text message and that the entire is happy that that message is to go, then it passes that into a bulk mailing system. It's called Twilio or Twilio, I don't know even how to pronounce it, which will ping out the SMS. And because we use it at such a small level, we don't send bulk text and we don't send bulk mail, and they're both, you know, very different ball games. It costs us what, threepence a text or something?
Yeah.
You know, it's tiny compared with post. So if we're having to say to people, you know, we can't get hold of you, if you still want us, you've got to ring us. You know, that costs us threepence rather than goodness knows what post was costing. But
Yeah.
it's a bit, that's where it does get, you know, when I said Tara could have done this, she could, and anybody who's not frightened of computers could do, but the integrations are definitely a bit more tricky, and you would probably need the services of somebody, or maybe a member of your team like I was, who's, you know, reasonably comfortable with that type of thing. You know, that one's harder than some if, but it's not impossible.
Okay, lovely. And just a question about the how you might repurpose it and why you might repurpose it, and to Alex's point about how much time, if you were adding up all the time that your advisors spent going through a very laborious form instead of being able to take shortcuts, for example, in the case of the Google Sheets, or in doing the reporting, for, you know, for you, Margaret, or for Catherine, if you added up all of that time, would you say that you can make a business case for, say, for example, Giovanna, if you were moving to Airtable, if that was a time, I mean, can you calculate how much time, and also how much quicker the energy advisor appointments might be if the form was a bit more flexible?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a business case. It is about there being sufficient surplus, I think, to be able to do that. Because, you know, when you're developing a system, I mean, it isn't just the system cost. It's the time that it takes you to develop it, tweak it, for your advisors to test it. I mean, it's quite a huge time investment, and there's never been a time when it's been calm enough for us to go, look, we've got some breathing space where we haven't got some ridiculous targets to meet. It was never feasible until we got some funding from Power Exchange to be able to dedicate some staff time to that, I guess. So yes, that's a business case, but it was, you know, it's quite an investment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to put a sum to our savings, but I think, as I said earlier, I know for sure we wouldn't have been able to grow as much as we have done without that system, because of the speed at which we can manipulate the data. And therefore, with the reporting and funding applications, you know, I can, you know, if there's a funding application that's about a specific vulnerability, I can pull the data off and give real figures as to, you know, what we've done over the last year in that particular vulnerability group, for example, or, you know, how our success in a particular area. So it's very powerful in that sense to have something, you know, to be able to go to and grab that data from in a very quick and easy way. I mean, for us, that, you know, I think after the first month, I calculated that it paid for itself just in the time saving with the monthly reporting to the funders, because, you know, if it's £100 per user. In that first year, we maybe had 7 users, Margaret, maybe 8 users, something like that. So, you know, it only cost us £800 for the year, but I was probably saving 4 hours of my time per month just on the reporting alone, nothing else. So, you know, for us, it was a complete winner immediately. And I think, you know, as we've explained, like with the texting and that kind of thing, you know, again, we've just, instead of sending a letter to someone saying, hey, look, we've been trying to get hold of you, now we just send a text. So it's a massive time saving and a massive cost saving. So there's kind of loads of implications around having the right system, you know, not necessarily Airtable, but just having the right system for your purpose, that will make you more efficient and also perhaps more attractive to funders if you can produce the data that you need.
Yeah, but I think it is about scale. I think you're right. It's about, you know, when you start getting to about 800, 900 clients a year, that's when it starts making sense, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of data.
I think it depends as well. One of the other issues is it depends on not just the raw number of clients, but it's also the number of energy advisors, the number of different people that you've got, which of course impacts the cost. I don't know about your situation in London, but I mean, how many separate people have you got rather than full-time equivalents doing that?
Yeah, we mostly have full-time, but we've got 7, I think. But I think as well the other time saving. Well, I don't know. This is a bit of a. So we work very closely with another organisation that is a national organisation that has a scheme. Oh God, I don't want to dump them in it here. There is a certain national organisation that does a lot of fuel poverty work. I know that their approach to training their advisors has been a little bit about building a system that does a lot of the hard work of making choices for them. So, for example, they spent a lot of time hard coding into their system what funder would fund particular measures. And there is a time saving in that you don't, I mean, one of the challenges of doing energy advice is the volatility of the sector. And we find that every 2 weeks we need to do some training, we need to do some updates because it changes so often. And, you know, the advisors have to hold all that information and then make choices. There is a sort of business case in that sense as well. But some in you know, hard coding some of the difficult choices or some of the routes to help in your system. I don't know. I don't know if I'd take that approach with our new system. I don't know. I prefer the advisors to be clever.
Just thinking the other kind of cost savings that we found is we use Airtable for multiple purposes, not just that client database. We use it for managing our events and clinics. Margaret actually is our maintenance coordinator on our solar rooftop sites, so she's got her own Airtable system that she uses for managing faults and monitoring the sites. So that, you know, Airtable, because it comes as a blank canvas, you can use it for whatever you need to use it for. It doesn't have to be a customer relationship tool. It can be any kind of, you know, spreadsheet related project that you're working on. So you can, you know, you pay one license fee and you can use it for multiple purposes.
Yeah. Can I also just sort of at the same time answer a question that's just come up on the chat? You have to have a license to be able to amend a database directly. However, data can be input, a new record, not an amendment, but a new record, like a new client or a new interaction or a new outcome, can be done over what Airtable call a form. Now, a form is exactly the same thing you embed on a website. So if, as well as all the home energy advisors which Tara's got, say there were also 10 other people out in the sticks who simply identified people and then referred them into ECOE, they could just fill in the form on the website and it comes in and they don't have to have a license. But if you're going to use and manipulate that data and add to it and, you know, add comments and stuff, then yes, you do need a license. Do you see what I mean? I think that probably answers the same question that's coming in. And yes, you can also upload data from Excel, which is what we did at Go Live. And I would point out that however hard it is to build the system, loading historic data was probably my biggest challenge, and Tara's as well, because we had to clean the data and then load it, and that's quite difficult.
Yeah, and deciding what we wanted to keep from the historic data, which was quite tricky, and even now ongoing because our database is getting quite big. So we're now in the next phase where we're deciding what we need to archive. You know, how far back do we keep current data, and what do we move onto a separate base to keep as a record, but take it off the live database.
And so I actually, Sarah's just put another question in the chat, which brings me to my next question, which about cloning the system and about how we move forward. And obviously, there are lots of systems out there which have been mentioned, like Salesforce and Civi CRM and other systems that people have created on a bespoke basis. How easy? I mean, I think we've established that Google Sheets is not a long-term workable solution. So if you are going to have if you've got a small village or town and you're only going to have limited numbers of clients, then it could work for you. But probably the long-term scalable solution is going to be something like Airtable. How do you see that? What can we learn from this group? What you've learned already? How can we translate that into something that other people can use? What does that look like in practice?
Well, we've already done that. We've already sold a version of our system to 2 other community energy groups. So they had a baby version, so they didn't have the pain of working out how to set it up. We gave them a version of ours, and Margaret did some tuition and training so that they knew how to use it, and how the manager knew how to do reporting and that kind of thing. So we did a package for 2 of our collaborators in Devon, who because we decided as a collective that we wanted to try and have a similar system here in Devon, so that we could report the same information into Devon County Council. So yeah, so we've already trialed that, and I think it worked reasonably well, Margaret, I think.
Yeah, I'd say that the problems that they've had, where they've hit problems, it's because they haven't had the dedicated management or technical time, if you like, of somebody looking at the data all the time and making sure that the energy advisors are filling things in right and making sure that the reporting's done monthly. Now, one of those organisations was much better than the other. And it's just because they're overwhelmed with work. They don't lack the ability, but they lack the time to give it the focus to really concentrate and to absorb what I've taught them and then to do it. So, you shouldn't, if you take on a more sophisticated system, you've got to have the time, both and in terms of the management time. And I mean, I suppose my ideal is what ECOE have got, is like a manager who's very focused on it and understands it very, very thoroughly, because, which was part of the design. And then somebody on the side who has got a reasonably good knowledge and can tweak things. Yeah, well, they can be the same person, but it's got to be somebody who can direct the way that people are working and understand the changes coming down the road and what needs to be done. So that's my big warning. If you don't have the capacity to do that, you'll just hit all the same problems, but sort of somewhat bigger and faster. You've got to have something there.
So I think it's worth saying that if you sign up with particular funders, you get a reporting system. So if you sign up with a big energy saving network, they give you a reporting system. If you sign up with, if you're part of the LEAP project, then you get a reporting system. You don't need to create your own. Another thing, Google Sheets it's very limited. But I think if you're just starting out, I think there was an incredible amount of learning for me. And, I think the time I spent looking at the data and reflecting on it and going, how can I collect? Am I able to answer some of the questions I'm trying to answer here about the quality of provision, about whether we're really helping people? With the questions that we've asked, with the data we've recorded and evolving the system, has been useful learning for me. I think, starting off, if you're starting off small, then I think Google Sheets does work. However, I will say that, so Chelsea's got some funding from Power to Change to develop a CRM system. The idea is to develop something that can then be developed. We have already agreed to work with Community Energy and to develop that into a system that can be customized or used as a base system that other groups can take away and then customize to their own needs. So rather than having a generic system for everyone, having a base system that you can then, that the different groups can then go away and customize to their various needs. Yeah.
Is it on a specific platform, Giovanna, that they're building?
So we haven't made a platform neutral at the moment. Haven't made. So I'd love to have a chat with you about platforms. Don't know. We've got some money for some consultants to come in. It will be on a platform. Maybe Airtable. Maybe I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah. So we got a bit of cash, and we want to make it, you know, to build something to benefit the sector. So.
So I think just before, Richard had one question about locality dependent. Would this work on a regional basis? I mean, obviously ECOE is a collaborative, cooperative sort of, you know, you have lots of people, teams coming into you, but would you say that it could work where you had lots of different community energy groups with a single Airtable manager or something like that? Or do you think each organization needs, or with Celsi, for example, do you think it's possible to collaborate across organizations, or is everyone different?
We are sort of doing that with the two organisations that we gave a cut down eco version to, and they are currently sharing a database. But as soon as it's convenient to do so, they do plan to get divorced because the decision making, you want to change the value of a specific action. You know, what value do you attribute to draft excluders or something? If they have a different idea on that, it becomes very hard. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
And it's the data.
Big minuses.
Yeah, they also have a very legal document between them around the data, because they've got two different organisations looking at each other's data. So I don't think it does work on I don't think it can work having one regional database. Well, it could work, but it would be very complicated. It would be very complicated around data sharing and, like Margaret says, around decision making and changes, and also if you've got all different people accessing the same database and somebody deletes something, so it could be somebody from another group deletes something of yours. I mean, you're going to be pretty damned upset, aren't you?
Yeah, and security is at the database level with Airtable. If you were using, say, I don't know, a National Health Service system or something, your GP practice would be restricted to their records within that database. That's not the case with Airtable. You either get the whole database or you don't. You know, it's not, you can't chop it around like that. And no, that sort of thing is for the big boys, really. Airtable, I don't think would stretch to that.
And yeah, you can lock parts, Alex. There are certain things you can make. You can make views locked for individuals and locked for changes. You can make fields only changeable by certain levels of people. And within the space, so within the space, you have the different bases, so you can actually give people access to a single base rather than the whole lot. So yeah, there's lots of flexibility in terms of who you give access to what, and that's what we do with a couple of our eco installers. So we have a separate table where we put all of the referrals to them on a table, and they have access to only that table, and it's a read-only access. They can't change it.
Yeah, we can. Okay. Yes, but what you can't stop somebody, any of your users who have access to the base actually viewing all the records. You can stop them changing them.
Yeah.
So like in Excel, you can password protect things. You couldn't do that within Airtable.
Well, it's when you sign on, it's password protected, yes.
And you can password protect views. Yeah, you can password protect a view. So but that's for external. Once somebody's got a license, so if they've got a license to use your space, they're a paid user, then they've got access to the space. And then you can just lock certain parts of it. But if it's an external person, so in my case, that eco installer, we don't want them having access to the database, but we do want them to have access to a particular view of data. So we can password protect that and give them the access just to that one tiny bit of data.
Useful. So I guess the next question is, would it be worth having another meeting maybe in a couple of weeks for everybody who is interested in moving this forward, in terms of you know, Giovanna's team, obviously you have some money, and I suppose the next step is scoping it out and deciding on a platform. And Community Energy England has a little bit of money as well to kind of help to develop the CRM system. It does sound like we are actually quite along the way, because Tara is already sharing a system. So hopefully there isn't too much to be done. You know, if Giovanna, if your team decide that Airtable is the way to go, actually it doesn't sound like there's too much. You know, ECOE have done so much work already, which is going to help the rest of us. But I wonder whether is there like a sort of show of hands kind of thing, who would be up for a meeting maybe in a couple of weeks' time to discuss specifically how to move this forward, and what requirements people have that maybe could inform Giovanna's, well, I mean, obviously, G, you kind of lead on it, to be honest, what you would need, but would it help you to have consultation with other groups who are also transitioning?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Unless we know what people's needs and what they're doing, you know, there's no way we can design a system for it. Well, that's a hand up. There's hands up. I'll let you manage that, Kirsty.
People would be up for it. Okay, so I think what I'll do then is I will, if you weren't on my original email list for this meeting, could you please email me? I'm on, I'll put my email in the chat. If you want to be involved going forward, sorry, typing and running a meeting doesn't really work, does it? That's probably correct. And then, so email me if you would like to be involved in the next steps on the CRM, and also anybody is welcome to join the working group, which meets on a monthly basis, and the next meeting is on the 8th of February at 4 o'clock. Duncan, have I missed anything else that I should be saying? And oh yes, and there is a Google group, which let me just put the link in the chat, which basically we email on anything to do with energy efficiency related stuff. That's my email address, and then there's the Google group, and you're all welcome to join. I think that link should work. Okay. And I suppose it just remains for me to say thank you so much to Tara and to Giovanna and to Margaret and Catherine and Alex in the background for your contribution, and for putting this together, for showing us your work, and also for doing all the work in the first place and saving the rest of us the trouble. You know, we really appreciate you giving up your time to prepare for it and to do it. It's been really, really useful. So thank you very, very much on behalf of everyone here and everyone who's going to watch the recording, and also on Community Energy England as well. So thank you for all of that. Anything else, Duncan?
Only, how much did you charge, Tara, your other groups for your system?
I can't. Yeah, I can't actually remember. There was a price for a base database, and then we charged, we charged out Margaret. We pimped her out to do some bespoke changes, and then we also charged them, I think, to do the training sessions with them. So it probably ended up being about 1,500 to 2,000, maybe something like that.
Yeah, and they also had to pay me direct for their data load.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that, because there may be the people who've come through the NEA training we've kind of said we want to set them up with some kind of CRM monitoring and evaluation system, and this may be a way to go. Sounds great. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, get in touch if you've got any other questions and want to be involved in whatever way. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us, and yeah, happy to take questions anytime.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you both. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.